The person you love finally realized your true worth. Everything changed last night. My beloved child. Something changed last night, and the person you love has not been able to look at you the same way since. It was not because you suddenly became different. It was because, for the first time, they finally saw what had been standing in front of them all along. Your patience. Your loyalty. The quiet way you cared even when you received almost nothing in return. The moments when you could have walked away but chose understanding instead. Last night, all those memories returned at once, and one realization hit them harder than they expected: they had completely underestimated your worth. Don't skip, because what triggered this realization is not what you might think. There was a moment last night when they were alone with their thoughts, replaying everything that had happened between you. At first, they tried to distract themselves. They told themselves they were fine. But then one memory surfaced, the exact moment when you gave them kindness while they were emotionally distant from you. Suddenly another memory followed. Then another. They remembered the times you noticed what nobody else noticed. The times you stayed calm when confusion could have turned everything upside down. And then came the question they could no longer avoid: what if I never find someone who understands me the way this person does? That question changed the entire night. Stay till the end, because the answer they gave themselves opened a door they had been afraid to touch. They started comparing the temporary attention they had received from others with the genuine connection they felt around you, and the difference became impossible to ignore. Other people may have impressed them for a moment, but you left something deeper behind. You made them feel seen. You made ordinary moments carry meaning. And suddenly, the possibility of losing you no longer felt like a distant idea. It felt real. That was when their confidence disappeared and something much more powerful took its place: clarity. They realized your value was never determined by how loudly you demanded recognition. Your value was hidden in everything you consistently brought into their life without needing applause for it. And once they understood that, they could not unsee it. But the biggest realization came later, when they remembered something you once said or did that seemed small at the time. Maybe you encouraged them when they doubted themselves. Maybe you listened when everyone else wanted to speak. Maybe you gave them space without making them feel abandoned. Whatever that moment was, last night it suddenly carried a completely different meaning. They finally understood that your care had never been ordinary. And this is where everything changed. They began wondering whether they had waited too long to show you what you truly mean to them. Don't skip now, because this is where the story turns. They started imagining your life without them in it, not because they wanted that future, but because they suddenly understood it was possible. They pictured you laughing again without waiting for their attention. They imagined someone else recognizing your heart immediately instead of taking months or years to understand it. They imagined you receiving the consistency you had quietly deserved all along. And for the first time, that picture unsettled them. Not because they wanted to control your future, but because they realized they had treated something precious as though it would always be available. Something huge is waiting for you, because last night they stopped asking, "Will this person always care about me?" and started asking, "Have I done enough to deserve their care?" That difference matters. Their thoughts moved through every conversation, every silence, every misunderstanding, and every opportunity they could have handled differently. They remembered moments when you were probably waiting for reassurance and they gave you uncertainty instead. They remembered times when your silence was not indifference, it was you protecting your peace. And suddenly they understood something they had completely missed: you were never asking for perfection. You were looking for sincerity. You wanted actions that matched words. You wanted to know that your presence mattered without constantly having to prove why it should. That realization stayed with them long after everything around them became quiet. And somewhere in that silence, they made an emotional decision they have not yet revealed to you. What happened next is why last night may become the turning point neither of you expected. Instead of running from their feelings like before, the person you love finally allowed themselves to admit the truth: you matter to them far more than they have shown. They understood that your worth was never waiting for their approval. You already carried it. They were simply late in recognizing it. Stay till the end, because there is one more detail that changes the meaning of everything. Last night, they did not only think about what they could lose. They thought about what they could finally build if they stopped allowing fear, pride, confusion, or hesitation to speak louder than their heart. They imagined having an honest conversation with you. No games. No mixed signals. No pretending that the connection means less than it does. They imagined looking at you and finally saying the words they had repeatedly swallowed. And strangely, that thought brought them relief. For so long, they may have believed that keeping their emotions hidden gave them control. Last night taught them the opposite. Hiding the truth was the very thing creating distance between you. Now they are standing at an emotional crossroads. One direction leads back toward the same silence, the same uncertainty, and the same unfinished story. The other requires courage. It requires them to show you through real behavior that their realization means something. And this is the once-in-a-lifetime shift you need to understand: their biggest fear may no longer be admitting how much you mean to them. Their biggest fear may be discovering that you finally learned your own worth before they found the courage to honor it. Don't skip what comes next, because the decision forming inside them could completely change the way they approach you. Something huge is waiting for you, and it began with one quiet realization last night. They finally understood that people like you are not easily replaced. Genuine connections cannot be recreated on command, and when someone brings loyalty, patience, warmth, and sincerity into your life, you do not keep treating them like an option and expect them to remain forever. Now the question is no longer whether they recognize your worth. They do. The real question is what they are preparing to do about it. And what they decided last night may be far bigger than anything you are expecting. There is a reason they have been unusually quiet since last night, and it has nothing to do with losing interest. That silence is carrying a conversation they have been having with themselves over and over again. They keep returning to one uncomfortable truth: recognizing your worth is easy now, but proving that recognition to you will require something they have avoided for far too long. They cannot simply appear with beautiful words and expect every unanswered question to disappear. They know you have heard promises before. They know you have watched words arrive quickly while actions moved slowly. And last night, they finally understood that if they approach you again, they have to approach you differently. Don't skip, because this is where their realization became a decision. At some point during that long night, they stopped thinking only about how much they missed you and started thinking about what you actually deserved from them. That distinction changed everything. Missing someone can be emotional, but valuing someone requires responsibility. They remembered the moments when you gave them opportunities to be honest and they hesitated. They remembered how many times you probably sensed what they felt before they were brave enough to admit it themselves. Most importantly, they remembered the version of you who kept offering understanding while quietly becoming stronger. And suddenly a thought entered their mind that they could not push away: maybe you are no longer waiting. Maybe while they were trying to understand their emotions, you were learning how to live peacefully without depending on their choices. That possibility struck deeper than jealousy ever could, because they realized your strength had been growing in the very silence they misunderstood. Stay till the end, because what they are preparing to change is bigger than a simple message or conversation. They are beginning to understand that if they want a meaningful place in your future, they cannot return with the same habits that created uncertainty in your past. And there is one specific truth they finally admitted to themselves last night, a truth they had been resisting because admitting it meant accepting just how important you had become. That truth was simple but powerful: you were never difficult to value. They were simply distracted by things that looked important until they compared them with what you brought into their life. Suddenly, temporary excitement looked small beside genuine peace. Empty attention looked meaningless beside real understanding. People who appeared impressive from a distance could not recreate the feeling of being understood without having to explain every emotion. And that comparison opened their eyes. Don't skip now, because the next realization was even stronger. They remembered how you behaved when nobody was watching. Your kindness did not depend on an audience. Your loyalty did not need recognition. Your presence was not a performance designed to impress them. You simply showed up as yourself, and ironically, that was exactly what they had failed to appreciate soon enough. Now those small moments have become the memories they cannot stop replaying. The way you noticed changes in their mood. The way you remembered details they assumed everyone forgot. The way your energy could make an ordinary conversation feel important. Last night, those memories stopped looking ordinary. They became evidence. Evidence that what existed between you carried a depth they had been too distracted, confused, or hesitant to understand. Something huge is waiting for you, because this realization created another question inside them: if I know what this person is worth now, am I brave enough to treat them accordingly? And for once, they did not immediately run from the answer. They started thinking about consistency. Honesty. Showing up. Listening instead of assuming. Speaking clearly instead of expecting you to interpret silence. They realized that love cannot survive forever on hidden feelings. Eventually, something has to become visible. Something has to become real. And that is why their next move matters so much. They do not want to return to you simply because they are afraid of losing you. Deep inside, they want to become someone capable of meeting you with the same sincerity you once offered them. But there is still one obstacle standing between their realization and that moment, and it is the very thing that kept them silent before. They do not know how you will respond when they finally tell you everything. And now the pressure inside them is building, because every hour they wait feels different after what happened last night. Before, waiting felt safe. They could hide behind timing, uncertainty, pride, or the belief that there would always be another opportunity. That illusion is disappearing. They understand now that meaningful people do not remain frozen in place while someone decides whether to appreciate them. You have your own journey, your own future, your own choices. And strangely, realizing that has made their feelings clearer than ever. They are beginning to see that respecting your worth also means respecting your freedom to choose what happens next. That is why the conversation forming inside their mind is not the conversation you might expect. It is not about demanding another chance. It is not about asking you to forget everything that confused or disappointed you. It is about finally telling you what they should have said when the connection first became impossible to ignore. Stay with this, because the most surprising piece has not been revealed yet. They have been thinking about one particular moment between you. One moment they once misunderstood completely. At the time, they thought you were pulling away because you cared less. Last night, they finally realized you may have pulled back because you cared deeply but could no longer carry the emotional weight alone. That realization stopped them cold. Suddenly your distance made sense. Your silence made sense. Your changed energy made sense. You were not necessarily trying to punish them. You may simply have reached the point where protecting your peace became more important than proving your heart. And once they understood that, their entire view of you shifted. Don't skip what comes next, because they are now considering doing something they previously convinced themselves they would never have the courage to do. Not something dramatic for attention. Something honest. Something that could finally remove the confusion between you. Last night began with memories, but it ended with a choice forming inside them. They know what you are worth now. They know what they risk losing. And they know that another season of silence could become the answer neither of you wanted. The only thing left is whether they will act before the moment passes, and the words they are preparing to say may reveal why they held back from you for so long. What they are preparing to admit could completely change the way you understand their silence, because the truth is not that they failed to feel something for you, it is that what they felt became deeper than they knew how to handle. Last night, they finally stopped pretending that distance had made the connection disappear. It had done the opposite. The quieter things became, the louder certain memories returned. Your voice. Your patience. The way you could understand the meaning behind their words even when they struggled to explain themselves. And then came the realization they had been avoiding. They were not afraid because you meant too little, they were afraid because you had begun to mean too much. Don't skip, because that realization uncovered something even they were not prepared to face. They started remembering the exact moments when they almost told you the truth but pulled back at the last second. There were conversations when they wanted to say more. Moments when they wanted to stop you from walking away emotionally. Times when a simple sentence could have cleared up everything, yet hesitation won. They convinced themselves there would be another moment, another opportunity, another perfect time. But last night they understood that waiting for a perfect moment can quietly destroy a meaningful one. Stay till the end, because this is where their thinking changed completely. They are no longer asking themselves whether their feelings are real. That question has already been answered. Now they are asking whether they have the courage to become honest before you close a door they assumed would remain open forever. And when they imagined that door closing, something inside them shifted. They pictured reaching for you only to discover that you had finally stopped looking backward. They imagined seeing the calm in your eyes and realizing you no longer needed the explanation you once waited to hear. That possibility made one thing painfully clear: they cannot keep expecting your heart to understand words they never speak. Something huge is waiting for you, because the confession forming inside them is not simply, "I miss you." It goes much deeper. What they truly want to admit is, "I finally understand what you were trying to give me, and I should have recognized it sooner." But there is another layer to last night that makes this turning point even more powerful. As they replayed your story together, they began noticing how often you chose dignity instead of chasing reassurance. They once misunderstood that strength. Perhaps they assumed your quietness meant you would always return. Perhaps they believed your patience meant there was unlimited time. Now they understand the difference. Your patience was never permission to take you for granted. Your kindness was never weakness. Your willingness to understand them never meant you were willing to accept endless uncertainty. Don't skip now, because this realization forced them to confront the one question they could no longer escape: what did this person need from me that I kept failing to give? The answer was not perfection. It was clarity. You needed to know where you stood. You needed consistency instead of guessing. You needed actions that made you feel valued without having to ask repeatedly. And suddenly they saw every missed opportunity differently. The conversation they postponed. The reassurance they almost gave. The moment they noticed you becoming quieter but chose not to ask why. Those memories now carry weight because they finally recognize what was happening beneath the surface. While they were protecting themselves from vulnerability, you may have been slowly learning to protect yourself from disappointment. And here comes the surprising shift: instead of blaming you for changing, they are beginning to understand why you had to. Stay with this, because their next realization is the one that could determine everything. They realize that getting closer to you again cannot be about restoring the old connection exactly as it was. The old connection contained too much uncertainty. If anything meaningful is going to happen, it has to become something stronger, clearer, and more balanced. That means they have to show up differently. No expecting you to read their mind. No disappearing emotionally when things become serious. No assuming that genuine people will simply wait forever. For the first time, they are considering what it means to meet you at the level of respect you always deserved. And there is one sentence they keep imagining themselves saying when that conversation finally happens: "I see you differently now because I finally understand what I almost overlooked." The most unexpected change, however, is happening in the way they now see your future. Before last night, part of them may have assumed that whatever existed between you could simply remain unfinished until they were ready. Now they understand that life does not work that way. You are growing. You are becoming more aware of what you deserve. You are learning which connections bring peace and which ones leave you constantly searching for answers. And the person you love can sense that change, even if you have never explained it directly. That is why their next move feels so important to them. Don't skip, because the strongest revelation is still ahead. They have realized that winning your attention is no longer enough. They want your trust, and trust cannot be demanded. It has to be earned through what happens after the emotional words are spoken. They know one conversation cannot erase every uncertain moment. They know a beautiful confession means very little if tomorrow looks exactly like yesterday. And strangely, understanding that has made them more serious, not less. Something huge is waiting for you because last night did not simply awaken their feelings, it challenged their behavior. They are beginning to understand th.